Hello and welcome back to Gapeys Garden. Today is an exciting day because we are going to finally get our Annuum peppers planted. So here is the Tinkerbell, and we started these Annuum peppers back in March. I've got links to those videos on how I started those from seed, as well as how I got those repotted into bigger containers in the description of this video. So if you want to check those out, make sure you do. But today's video is going to be all about getting these planted in the ground. I've got the bed prepared here on this side of the greenhouse. I finally got everything that I planted in the spring out of here, so it is nice and ready to go. We've also got a layer of compost that I put down, and that's about 1 inch thick, and it's full of chicken manure that's been composting over the last year. So we should have lots of nutrients for these guys to give them a good head start. So let's go ahead and get these in the ground. Before we get started, I just wanted to show you how I have these spaced out. We have 12 peppers here. All of them are Annuum varieties except for one. So we do have the Piri Piri here, and that one is a Baccatum. So that is the only non-Annuum pepper we have over here, but all the rest are Annuums, and I've got them spaced about 20 inches apart, and I've got a yardstick here that I use to make sure they're spaced pretty evenly, and I've got all the taller varieties in the back. So those are all the gochu peppers, that Piri Piri, and then we've also got the Aleppo over here, and then this one is the Padron. So those seem to be the tallest varieties that I'm growing this year, so I decided to put those all in the back, and then the smaller varieties I've got here in the front. And also on this side of the greenhouse we've got a couple of tomatoes. We've got Baronia, a dwarf tomato there, and then we also have Fortunia, which is an Italian heirloom paste tomato that I've grown in the greenhouse for the last several years. And then I'm trying melons in the greenhouse for the first time this year, so we'll see how those do. And then here's just a quick look at the Chinense varieties that I have on the other side of the greenhouse. We've got 2, 4, 6, 7 of those, and then I've also got some of Kangstar's crosses over here as well. That's the chocolate linzo. But those are all looking pretty good. They've been in the ground for the last couple of weeks. Some of them are getting lots of flowers, so we're just waiting for some pods to set. And you can see here I have mulched this with some straw, and I'm doing that for the first time this year, so we'll see how that does. But so far, I'm really liking how it's working. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start here with this Tinkerbell. So the first thing that I like to do is remove the bottom few leaves from the main stem. So this one here is pretty close to the bottom. So I'm gonna take that one off, and I'm gonna take that one off. And you can plant peppers deeper than what they're planted in the pot, and they'll grow more roots along the stem. So they don't grow roots along the stem quite as fast as tomatoes, but they will eventually. So that should be enough for now, and we can remove some more later if we need to. So I'm gonna grab my Corona shovel here and dig us a little hole. Now there are 3 things I'm gonna be amending the planting hole with this year. And one of those is going to be my favorite fertilizer for transplanting, and that is the Trifecta from M.I. Gardner. So this is a fairly slow release fertilizer. It has pretty big sized granules. So you can see here they're fairly large, so they will take some time to break down. So that should feed the plant for several months. So I just put a handful in there of that. And then I've also got some eggshells, and I usually just crunch the eggshells up in my fingers, but that doesn't really get it very fine. So if you want it to be really effective, you should use like a spice grinder, which is what I used for this. So you can see the eggshells are really finely crushed. So I'm going to add a little handful of that in there. And then another new thing that I'm trying this year is mycorrhizae. So this one is from Plant Success Organics, and there's several different companies that offer this, but this one also has some little bit of fertilizer in it. So this is a 3-1-2, so a pretty low dose of fertilizer, which will be good for the plants. So I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of that in the planting hole. And then we're gonna take our shovel and just kind of mix that up a little bit. That should be good. And then we'll take our pepper and see what the roots look like. So these have been in these containers for well over a month. So I'm just going to kind of squeeze the sides to loosen it up a little bit and then pull on the stem. So you can see there, the roots are pretty well established. So this is pretty close to being root bound. You can see the roots are starting to coil around on the bottom. So when that happens, then I'm gonna just take you can use a stick, you can use anything long and skinny, and I'm just going to use that to kind of pry the roots apart a little bit so they can start growing in a better pattern and not continue to coil around in a circle. So you may break a few roots doing this, but that is totally fine. It'll be good as new before long. So there. So now we have some roots that are free and can spread out more easily. So I don't usually do that to the sides. It's just pretty much the bottom that you need to loosen up a little bit. And then sometimes I even add some of this mycorrhizae directly to the roots. And then we'll just put that here in the planting hole. So it's a little bit below soil level, so then I'm just going to backfill with the rest of the dirt that we removed. And I'm just going to push it down gently to make sure it's in there firmly and there's no big air pockets. All right, so that one is done. Now if we take a look at the leaves that are closest to the bottom and just make sure none of them are touching the ground. So I am gonna put a layer of straw in here when we're done. So we wanna make sure that the leaves are totally clear and not touching the ground. So this one is it's not touching, but it's pretty close. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove this one. And I think I'll also remove this one here. So that should be good. And we can remove some more after we get the straw down if we need to. So that's pretty much the process that I use for transplanting the peppers. And this is also the same process I use for tomatoes as well. So we should be good there. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the rest of these planted. All right, we are all done, and here is the aftermath. We got all 12 of these peppers planted. So the last thing that we need to do is get some straw mulch down. And you can see I've got the straw mulch down on this side, which is keeping the soil really nice and moist, which is awesome. I don't have to water quite as often, and it gets really hot in the greenhouse, so that will help the peppers a lot, I'm sure. So I got to do that on this side too. And if you decide to use straw mulch, just be aware that there is most likely going to be grass or straw seeds in the bale of hay that you get, or bale of straw. So if you have chickens, that is a perfect thing for them to do, is get those seeds out of the straw. And that is what we did. We gave the bale of straw to the chickens for about 2 weeks, and they go through and they eat every single seed that is in there. So I shouldn't have any problem with straw seeds or grass seeds coming up out of the straw. I have tried before without giving it to the chickens first, and I had a lot of sprouts. So just be warned, if that's something that you plan on using, you may be busy pulling out those grass seeds. So let's go ahead and get that put down. But first we got to do a little bit of cleanup here. So we have this big weed bag here, and I've got it full of straw. So I'm just going to take a handful and just place it between the peppers and then just slowly spread it around. So I'm just putting about 1 or 2 inch layer, and that should be enough to keep the soil nice and moist. All right, pepper planting season is finally done. Now we just need to wait for some pods. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. You can also find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.